Back again. This time we're here for a review. That's right, if you click the thumbnail, we are here to talk about Werewolf by Night. My name is Josh, thanks for checking out the channel. If you're here, you want to hear about Werewolf by Night and how it was. I'm going to try and stay as spoiler free as possible, because I think this is definitely one that's best if you go into relatively blind, but I will talk about things that are fairly obvious in the trailer at least. So this is basically, to my knowledge, a standalone kind of one-off from Marvel. To preface this a little bit for everybody, I am a pretty big Marvel fan, or at least I have been for a long, well, mostly the entirety of the MCU of it being created, but then as I think we're in phase 4 now, whatever phase we are in, after Endgame I got a little more disenchanted with it. Again, more of the stories just kind of went all over the place and kind of lost a little focus for me, and I haven't liked a lot of the shows as much. That's not necessarily that fair. I haven't watched most of the shows. I've watched a couple of them and they were okay. They were not bad, but definitely not like Marvel used to be for me, as far as that I really enjoyed it. Same thing with the movies. The movies, I haven't really watched all of them. I've watched a couple that I thought I'd be most interested in, and they were okay. Then some were not okay. This, on the other hand, is right up my alley and absolutely something I can grab a hold of and love, because again, it doesn't have to be part of the whole MCU. I'm sure it's going to play some role, probably a minor role to some extent, although it may be big down the line. I don't know. It depends on how much planning they've gone into there. Not 100% sure there's a ton of planning going on, but who knows. The basic plot of this one is there's a little bit of a brief description of monsters being around and being alive in the MCU, and monster hunters being in the MCU, and that there's a relatively long history of a monster hunting family, specifically the Bloodstones, which was founded by Ulysses Bloodstone, who is in possession of an amulet that gives him power as well as has effect on monsters. So they give you a brief synopsis of that pretty quickly out the gates, and then from that point on you realize that Ulysses is now passed. Again, it's in the trailer, and they're going to perform a hunt, because of course they would, they're hunters, to see who should come into possession and gain all the power that Ulysses had by giving him the Bloodstone amulet. And that's basically the movie. I'm not going to tell you too much more about the details, except it's awesome. It all takes place in one night. It's a pretty quick little movie, special presentation I believe they called it. It's like 60 minutes or under, and in my opinion, again, it's pretty fantastic. It's probably my favorite thing that's happened since Endgame. I really did like Thor, but there's a good bit of problems with that one, which I'm well aware of, but I enjoyed that one. Doctor Strange 2 I also enjoyed a good bit, but it's really when you're having to confine to the whole MCU or conform to that, it really starts to, you leave some loopholes, and it's not, they're big overarching stories. This is a much smaller contained story in one night, and not to mention that I'm just a huge fan of the Universal monsters and most of those early monster movies from the 30s and 40s, and this is shot pretty much exactly like that, at least with the feel and the tone and a lot of the little nuances that the director puts on there. So the director is Giacchino, who is known for doing scores. So he's done, if you look up his IMDb page or any sort of a list of things that he's done, he's pretty much the who's who. There's him and a couple of other people out there, composers, that really put together music for a lot of the major movies, and he's one of them. So it was kind of a shock to realize that he was directing it, but I'm going to tell you, he did fantastic. And he was able to do the music and direct it, so he had basically complete control, and he kind of knew what his vision of he wanted it to be, and I think that definitely helped him be able to bring that to life, and it showed, because the look, the sound, the environment of it is awesome. The atmosphere, that sounds better. It's a relatively small cast. There's a handful of hunters. For our main characters, you have Jack Russell, yes, like the terrier, who's played by Gael Garcia Bernal. You have Elsa Bloodstone, the daughter of Ulysses Bloodstone, who's played by Laura Donnell. You have Verussa, I believe that's how you say her name, who's the wife of Ulysses Bloodstone, played by Harriet Sansom Harris. That was a mouthful. And then you have another handful of hunters and henchmen and stuff like that that are around, but for the most part, those are the big ones, and they all do a fantastic job. The thing I really appreciate about this movie is everybody's very committed, and they know what kind of movie and role they're in. Some of the things are a little over the top. Verussa is very over the top in her characterization and her acting, but it fits really well. Like, she's now the matriarch of this family at the moment, and she's laying down the law, even though You know, they're supposed to be good guys. Are they really good guys because of the things that they do? You know, there's some things going on here, and everybody's not exactly what they seem, and that's a common theme that pops up here with, you know, like Jack Russell. He is fantastic in this show. The actor Gail Bernal, he is fantastic. I don't really recognize him from anything else, but his soft-spoken manner and his ease of being able to deal with people and communicate really well, and he's more or less just a nice kind of sweet guy. I thought his portrayal of this was awesome because it kind of represents the two sides of the coin. I don't think there's much spoilers in saying that there is a werewolf in this movie. Not gonna tell you who it is, but it's pretty fantastic. And then you have Elsa Bloodstone, played by Laura Donnelly, who, again, I'm not completely and utterly familiar with. I didn't really research her IMDb page, but she didn't look super familiar to me, but I dug her in the role. Like I say, I thought she did it pretty well. I mean, she's the more or less estranged daughter from Ulysses and is coming back to kind of claim her birthright, but there's more to it than that, and you start to get a little more into it. Again, I don't want to ruin anything, so I'm going to leave a little bit more vague, but you have a good cluster of hunters as well that are very diverse in their skill sets and how they seem welcoming or not welcoming, and they have some good fight scenes. It's just really well choreographed. How the movie is shot is probably one of my biggest positives. We've talked about the score a little bit, and that, of course, with Giacchino being at the helm, that's what he's known for. He's able to do this. He builds a lot of tension with that. But visually, this movie looks awesome. Clearly, it's staged to be like it's a 30s, 40s monster movie where it's black and white, but it's always using the shadows. There's a lot of long shots, you know, staying on one thing where the light source changes or there's some blood splatter that comes onto that. You're following people, you get the monsters' viewpoints from various monsters at different times. I just really enjoyed it, and I thought that it really was very different, but at the same time very familiar, because I think I've watched a lot of those old classic horror movies. You grow up on those and you see this and it's very familiar. There's a lot of the little attentions to detail that make it seem like it's an old movie too. I mean, they have like the cigarette burns and things like that are in the movie. It just looks really good. As I think back to my experience with the movie, I was completely and utterly blown away because, again, I haven't been the biggest fan of most of the things that have come out from Marvel recently, and this one just took me by surprise. I remember I watched the trailer a little while back when they released it, I think at D23 or was it Comic-Con, and I was like, what is this? I just had no idea how this was going to fit into the MCU or what it was really going to be about, other than, you know, some sort of a werewolf and monsters, and I didn't need to know anything. And I still don't need to know more. I just really enjoy what happened. This contained episode, if you will. I would be all on board for watching more of this, so if it did come into, you know, more special presentations or some sequels of however you put them out, if it's show style or if it's movie style, I dig the movies, and I do think that this one, it didn't suffer from being too short. Like, again, it was 60 minutes and you got all of the beats that you needed to hit, but I definitely could have spent more time with all the characters or would want to spend more time moving forward. So I'm not going to complain too much about the runtime, but I think that's the only thing that really probably could have been changed, was they could have made it a little longer. But at the same time, when you see some of the shows, and the couple that I've watched, they're very, in my opinion, drawn out, and there's episodes you don't need and side characters and all kinds of stuff. So this was very focused. It told a really good story. It was a lot of fun, and I just really enjoyed it. I definitely hope that there's more things like this that come down the line. There was a special guest character, which I don't think is a spoiler just because they show him in the trailer. And if you're at all on the internet, you know that there is a Man-Thing cameo in this one. It's a little more than a cameo. He's actually a fantastic character, and for me, this is a character that I am familiar with, oddly enough. I'm familiar with a good bit of Marvel, but this one's pretty obscure. The only way I'm familiar with it is actually because there was a crappy sci-fi movie, I think it was made for Sci-Fi Channel back in the early 2000s, maybe early and mid 2000s, called Man-Thing, and I own it, of course, and I've watched it numerous times because it's a pretty violent movie. It's just a straight up horror movie. It's technically, I remember I just watched it not too long ago and it still says Marvel in the title, but this was before the whole MCU happened. But it's a story about Man-Thing, and he is uber violent and tears everybody to pieces. That one I don't think is canon, and it definitely doesn't play into the MCU and with this character of Man-Thing. But Man-Thing and the werewolf were definitely, their dynamic was part of my favorites in this. But the werewolf himself, Gail Bernal, he was fantastic. I just loved him. I actually even really liked the look of the werewolf. I know there may be some folks that maybe don't like it as much just because it's not as like werewolfy. It's a little more Wolfman-like, but it worked for me. It really stuck to the aesthetics and the look of like the 30s and 40s, so I was all for it. So, end all be all, I just want to let you guys know that I wholeheartedly suggest that you watch this one, especially this time of year. We're getting closer to Halloween. Might as well throw it on, you know, throw it on at night, turn the lights off, and just enjoy. It's definitely more violent than I thought. I think they're able to get away with a little more because it's black and white and you can't really see the color of the blood, but it worked really well for me. I don't know, let me know what you guys think. Did you enjoy it as much as I did? If you did, who was your favorite character? If you didn't, why did you not like it? Go ahead and let me know in the comment section. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. That'd be fantastic. And as always, you're awesome. Peace out.